From IGN's offices in San Francisco, welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat for the week of January 22nd, 2015. I am your host, Jose Otero, and joining me once again, the trio of Triforce, Awesome. I don't have anything.
Am I wisdom or power or?
You are straight up. You have to be. You have to be courageous to make the jokes you make.
No, I'm wisdom. He's power. Look at his arms.
Oh, what arms? I'm not a strong man.
That makes me courage. Okay, I'll take courage.
Your courage.
Yeah, I'll take it. All right. So the Triforce of Power then. Brian Altano.
Rap.
The Triforce of Wisdom, Peer Schneider.
Welcome, Jose Otero.
Fits. Wisdom. It's a way of we're saying you're
old.
old.
Means old.
Yeah, it's hidden. So let us begin. We're going to wrap up everything we missed last week from Nintendo Direct, so make sure you stay tuned with us for that. But first, we're going to lead off with Club Nintendo. Goodbye, Club Nintendo, in fact. Nintendo has decided it will phase out Club Nintendo worldwide to prepare for a new membership program. More events, more details on that in the future. They're not really talking about it yet. So I'm just going to go through the quick bullet points on this. Products released in North America after January 20th will not be eligible, for Club Nintendo registration. March 31st will be the last day for members in the region to earn coins, register products, sign up. March 31st.
Okay.
And the Club Nintendo program shuts down in North America on June 30th. All coins will be deleted when Club Nintendo accounts are closed on July 1st, 2015.
So by March 31st, you got to register all those little cards you still got lying around. And if you're like me, I always hoard cards, right? Because
do you really?
I want that platinum status every year.
Yeah.
You can't front load it. You can't, if you just enter everything.
So you don't buy digital because that goes in automatically.
No, I do.
Okay.
And it kind of fills up after a while.
Because he buys it in retail with that GM money.
I do have a bunch of cards just sitting there. I'm
really?
I'll enter those when I need platinum status again. Like when you're heading towards that, middle of the year.
All of mine have been entered. I know because Club Nintendo is it's the last. It's the only place as an adult where I lie about my age.
Really?
Wait, really? That's amazing.
Yeah, because
how old do you say you are?
I think I said I was 20. I think when I started, it was 25 or 27, 28, I guess.
Okay.
And I just keep going back to that age, so the machine thinks I haven't.
This guy hasn't aged. Should we be worried?
I went and looked at my Club Nintendo the other day. I have 2,900 coins.
Jeez.
And nothing to buy.
Well, no, there will be digital games for you to buy.
Yes, so dozens of downloadable
Which
games.
you already own.
And a limited...
Which I already bought.
Whoa. And a limited quantity of exclusive reward items, who knows what they are, will be added to the catalog before its termination. Also, all Club Nintendo members in North America will receive a free download of Flipnote Studio 3D, which was coming here anyway. Let's be fair.
So
this is a nice goodbye, but
here's the problem. Here's the problem with this, though. Right down at the very end, Club Nintendo is being very Club Nintendo, which they're saying you're looking at your coins and you're going, I don't want to spend them because something good might be coming. And no, really, and that's why I hoard them, because the other day they put up an NES Remix shirt and I was like, oh, I want to buy that, and I was like, what if on the last day of Club Nintendo they're like, oh, here's the Shigeru Miyamoto amiibo and he costs 3,000 coins, and I'm like, I'm on it. But now in the meantime I have to look at what they say, and they're just a limited amount of physical rewards, and I know in my head my dreams want that to be something awesome, but the reality is those will be Nintendogs folder sets and
erasers.
And Waluigi stationery, and I'm like, everybody needs a little bit of that, but not 3,000 coins.
Pikmin erasers. No, but I do feel like we knew this was coming. We knew when the Platinum GIF was revealed last year that it was very lame. We talked about it on the show how it was a bunch of games that most Club Nintendo owners who went Platinum probably already owned, and it was kind of a shame. And also, you know what should have been the big tip-off? Amiibo don't have Club Nintendo value.
Yeah.
They came and went and had nothing involved in the packaging.
Because otherwise I would have 6,000 coins.
And the new
I would be sitting on a gold mine.
Oh my God, yeah.
The new stuff you're seeing already doesn't have any more cards in it, right?
Yeah, they're starting to phase it out.
The new Nintendo 3DS does not have XL. Let me throw that on there for North American folks.
But does
not have the card in there.
It's interesting because there's been sort of a mad dash now to register as many coins as possible.
Because you can do the surveys too, right?
So I saw a lot of people on message boards and stuff like that helping each other out, telling them where you can buy games like Steel Diver, which are $3. You can
just for the points.
You get 50 coins off that.
Give me those coins.
And Steel Diver. And there's also a bunch of games on the eShop, both I think Wii U and the 3DS, that are free and give you points and surveys and stuff like that.
Well, you can do the surveys, yeah.
But we knew this was coming, and more importantly, I have expressed before, and I feel like you guys have too to some degree, that Club Nintendo has not been optimal as of late for as a rewards program. It hasn't really been that great. It's kind of the rewards program that you have to constantly chase. You have to log in, put in the coins. The digital aspect of it is automatic, but you are sort of chasing after these rewards versus something that I feel is going to be a bit more flexible or comes to you. I think, big Nintendo investors meeting is coming at the end of the month. I think whatever the new reward program is, it gets mentioned there, but it's probably not rolling out anytime soon.
I'm hoping what it is too. I'm like, regardless of what they switch this with, I hope that it's something that's universal. Because I think that one of the hardest things for me as a Club Nintendo guy was looking at the awards that we were seeing in other regions and not getting them. Yeah. Like, I mean, there was that Famicom Super Nintendo controller that came out in Japan that you could connect to your Wii U. Never came out here. There was like a Mario calendar that was like all in like sort of Hanafuda painting style. Never came here. UK got like Mario Kart trophies. Never came here.
But I gotta be honest that those rewards to me, granted, yeah, some territories got things that North America didn't. It was rarely ever vice versa in my memory. But it's stuff that I feel Nintendo should just sell on a storefront. Like, putting it out as rewards, I think, was kind of lame. Like, really? I have to be. I feel that way. I've never felt like a lot of that stuff was that worth it.
We had the same
quality wasn't so hot to me.
I actually thought it was for a lot of things, but we had the same discussion last year when we were sort of talking about the end of the year and with the Club Nintendo rewards, and it just came down to you being like, I don't really need more physical stuff, and then you went and bought 25 boxed amiibos, and me being like,
18, son, 18.
I like to have
while we distract you.
Wait till Wave 3 arrives.
Wave 3. Minus Rosalita.
God, don't get me started. But I actually like to have some of that stuff, and I thought that there's a lot of potential there, and I think that with digital rewards, there's some cool ideas. I actually went and bought a couple like themes for my 3DS the other day, and I put them on shuffle, and it's pretty cool to open up your. I think that's a good opportunity for that.
But what I want the next thing to be is a combination of. I want it to be rewards off of buying Nintendo stuff. I want it to be DDP but better, or really maybe exclusive software, things that just folks won't have that actually is high quality.
Yeah, I think I mean in the end, I'm sure they took a long hard look at the program and what they actually got out of it, and I think the kind of business intel and the the survey data that they got from this audience skews probably very hardcore, right? Like, how many people actually go buy a significant amount of software like that and then enter all the information, and that's probably the audience that Nintendo knows best, right? And so that didn't have that much value.
I don't know about you guys, but after 7 years of filling out Club Nintendo surveys, all my answers were just like nah,
really?
Or like N/A,
so
IGN.
I gave them good info, and I actually did tell them like who in the household I got the game for and all that. I mean, their frustrations.
I did at the beginning.
For me, their frustration. I buy 3 freaking copies of Pokemon games because I have 3 kids. I can only enter one. It goes like, you already entered that. I'm like, no, I didn't. That's not the same game. They're like, you already own a 3DS. I'm like, that's a different one.
I hated that too, where they'd be like, did you buy a Wii U for this? Don't you know me by now? No, I didn't. I bought a Wii U from 25 games ago.
But then if the value is somebody having this kind of like this goal, right? Like, I got to buy just 3 more games and I get to this platinum level.
Yeah.
They probably figured out that very few people did that. And so in the end, it's cheaper to not do this program and figure out a way to reward, hardcore fans. And another way, like, that's maybe the pre-order bonus stuff that they've already started to do, right? Mm-hmm. They see that as more of a valuable thing. Like, you get the Skull Kid in the pack. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. No, and I think that this leads to the Nintendo app will show its face. Either it ties to Nintendo Network ID. Hopefully it's something that you just scan a QR code in and it'll automatically register. You fill out the survey right there with a couple of taps. I want it to be something that's simple, easy, accessible. We know that they've been getting pressure from shareholders for what feels like forever now to do something with iOS, and that Iwata himself has said that they need to harness smartphones as a way to push people towards Nintendo products. Now, they have revamped a majority of their websites. Nintendo.com, if you bring it up on mobile, has full mobile integration now. It has, sort of the experience that you expect from mobile browsing today. Right. Like, it's not sort of as outdated or used like kind of pinching and zooming and trying to get a look at what you're trying to see.
Meanwhile, Club Nintendo didn't work on most computers, period.
Yeah.
That was a site that took 45 minutes to load. And
I remember on my Mac I had
time.
to use a specific browser to get in.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I hope that this all leads to some sort of unified app where on one end it's your window into Nintendo Network to see what your friends are playing or a way to communicate with them, and the other being where you can find the rewards program and really kind of dip in quickly, easily, and keep checking on things, get push notifications for sales. Like, why isn't Nintendo taking advantage of that? You know, the technology is out there and they need to get the message out there. I think
maybe there will be rewards for just checking the store more often, those kinds of things, right? Like actual tasks that they want to reward.
That's
like,
cool.
I understand why they're discontinuing it. It was when it was in its heyday, man. Game and Watch.
Yeah,
reward. It
awesome
was freaking
stuff.
awesome. I really liked it. Even
the Mario statue,
the kind of figurines, and
Single
like the
balloon
packaging
fight.
in the question mark block box. That kind of stuff was really special. And like I didn't enter codes or crap for any other company, right?
Yeah.
Like this was the one kind of big task. Even though I buy games across all the different platforms, so it was cool. It was special. Sad to see it go. I hope there'll be something good to buy in the end, even if it's just digital copies of games like Earthbound. I still think there's good value there for people who may not have entered the codes and are doing it now. So we'll see.
Hey, I mean, if I ended up getting like a free virtual console game with every 2 retail games I bought or 3 retail games I bought, like, I mean, that's a nice little bonus, you know?
Absolutely.
The DDP thing going away at the same time was like kind of difficult because it's, getting $5 back for every, 50 that you spent or something?
Something like that.
Something like that. It was pretty cool. That actually adds up when you buy a lot of games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was this nice heyday when they were both sort of working in synchronicity, and now they're both gone. So I hope they come back together in some format.
Absolutely. All right. So just to wrap this up, what was the coolest thing you guys got from Club Nintendo? You have a museum at your desk of stuff from Club Nintendo. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, there was a lot of. The first year, the platinum rewards were cool because they was made you choose one. If you got platinum, you felt like you were doing something right, and if you got gold, you got a calendar. That's how it worked every year. So that one year they had us choose between the Mario hat and Doc Lewis Punch Out, and I remember the only reason I didn't get Doc Lewis Punch Out, and it was just a reskin of Punch Out for Wii, which is available today actually.
We're gonna get to that one
on Wii U. But they let you finally play as Doc Lewis, who's the coach in Punch-Out. It was awesome. But I took the Mario hat.
Fight him. Sorry.
Oh, you get to fight him. That's right.
You get to fight him.
And I thought it was really cool that was like they made an exclusive game for this platform. That's amazing, even if it's just a mini game. So that was really cool. The Mario hat was cool.
I love the Mario hat is cool.
The Luigi's Mansion statue was really cool.
That was really cool.
I didn't get that one.
The Mario series statue was really cool. That was a platinum gift. I think like 2011 or 2010.
The gold nunchuck that went with the Skyward Sword gold remote was really cool.
Bling it out.
Yeah, bling it out.
Yeah.
There was the Mario statue was great. I liked the Hanafuda cards were really cool. The Mario playing card set was really cool. Even if you try to use them and like all the glitter dust comes off on your hands, they're really cool. They're like see-through and shiny. God, there was just like every now and then.
Was my favorite, like bar none.
Yeah, actually, there's like I got 2 of those like Pikmin tote bags that we use when we buy groceries every single week. Like my wife still uses them. Yeah, I mean they're great. Yeah. So it's like they're little things I kind of used here and there. There are things I didn't really use. Like there was like a Wiimote holder.
You actually ordered that?
That I ordered, and it sat there for like a day, and I'm like, I don't need this.
It's supposed to sit there for a day.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to put Wii remotes in.
School folders that were cool. Like my kids really like that kind of stuff. Like the school folders and the little pencil holders.
I mean, they did really cool stuff overseas too. Like they did. There was before the Wii remote came out. In like officially worldwide, especially in Japan, they Club Nintendo'd a TV remote that looked like the Wii remote, and you could order it. I actually saw it on my trip to Tokyo in a little used game store. And it's a TV remote, and it looks exactly like the Wii remote.
Oh yeah,
and you can sync it with your television and use it like a TV remote. Yeah. And it was people's kind of first like take home hands on. They also had this thing where you could send in Japan, you could send the Wii remote in, and they would sort of like blaze on this effigy of your Mii character.
Oh, that's
using
really
Club
cool.
Nintendo
I know
coins,
the Nintendo World Store messed around with during the DS era, doing like engravings and things like that. Really cool.
They were great. I mean, they were great ideas. There were some really cool
You could definitely watch year over year as they started to go away. I mean, even some of the poster sets were really beautiful. Like, we outfitted some of the conference rooms in this building a few years ago. With
there was a Zelda set that was actually pretty cool.
Okay.
So yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff. Sad to see it go. I hope that like if this dies down, they ramp up their merchandising in other departments, because I still think Nintendo needs its like a dedicated section when you go into Walmart or Target. Like kids need to,
or even Nintendo.com.
Yeah,
like, why
sure.
aren't you just selling some of this as merch instead?
Right, there's one. The closest thing to a real life realization of the Club Nintendo is going to the Nintendo World Store in New York,
which is in one location. I
One
think
spot.
there's one in Seattle.
Yeah.
On campus, but I don't know if they allow people from the public.
Even that one could use better shirt designs
Yeah.
and stuff, right? Like there's some companies out there that do a great job. Like Think Geek, for example, right? They do a great job at creating merchandise from scratch and
Or
working with
Fangamer.
partners.
Yeah,
and
Fangamer's a good example.
It'd be awesome if they found a partner who could churn that out, because they have such great character goods and
Absolutely.
and things. They could make a killer. With
Cool. So let's wrap up last week's Nintendo Direct. One of the big stories from it is that Wii games are back on Wii U, but not the way you think. Every Wii U is backwards compatible, but this time you are buying a digital version of that Wii game, and it's basically launches into the Wii mode directly from the Wii U menu.
sort of secretly too.
Yeah, just quickly.
Did you notice that?
Out. Yeah, if you hit the home button, you'll see the old Wii setup right there.
But it goes into a black screen, and you hear it's like they put a curtain over the Wii menu.
And it is a digital
but it's
version
there.
of that game. So they introduced it with Super Mario Galaxy 2, which hopefully you took advantage of the fact that for the first week, the 3 games they announced, which are Mario Galaxy 2, Punch-Out for Wii, and Metroid Prime Trilogy, which is Punch-Out and Metroid Prime Trilogy were coming at the time. Punch-Out's out this week. Metroid next week. Are $10 the first week. I think that's really
Metroid
smart.
Prime Trilogy for $10.
Yes.
Is
It's insane.
Steal
A
if you don't own it.
steal.
God.
That game goes for $60 plus if you get the retail, because it was out of print. It went out of print quickly.
And I will say it is worth replaying Metroid Prime 1 and 2 with the pointer controls. You know,
Yes.
like it worked at the time, but in hindsight, if you've played a lot of dual stick shooters, you miss the camera controls, right, in the original GameCube game. So having that option with Metroid
There was
Prime
barely
on the-
camera controls in the original GameCube
Well, it's
game.
Waka. It's like
Yeah.
a Zelda game, like Ocarina of Time control, but with a first-person shooter, so it felt a little weird.
No, but
sometimes.
I agree with you
But
that the changes they made were significant,
Yeah.
and it was really good.
Yeah.
and it has more voice audio in it in this edition as well. So I would, if you don't own Trilogy, definitely go for it for $10. But for all of these games, if you already have them on Wii, there really isn't a reason to buy them unless you are too lazy to go get the disc, right?
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, I met a friend of my wife's over Christmas break, and she's got 2 kids, and the only video game system they have is a Wii. And I was like, I have a bunch of old games on disc. I can send them to you. And I made them a little pile, and then every time, I haven't mailed them to them yet, but every time a Nintendo puts out another one of these games, I take the disc out of my folder and I put it in the pile to mail to these kids. So like these kids are definitely they're benefiting every time
pretty
one of
good.
these games comes out. But here's where I'm a little worried. We are now, two-thirds of the way through Nintendo's announcement of we are bringing Wii games to Wii U. And after next week, we will be 3/3 or 100%. What's next? When's the next announcement? Like, this is what my concern with Virtual Console with them all the time is that they start so strong. They go, here's Link to the Past, here's Mario, here's Zelda, and then it sort of trickles away, and then we get
That's
Clue
your
Clue
big
Land.
reaction? See, my big reaction is, I thought maybe we'll get an HD upscale of Metroid Prime or Galaxy 2, Like, that was my hope, because those games on a big screen, they don't look that hot anymore, but the art fundamentally is beautiful, right? Like the upscaling, Metroid Prime actually works a lot better than Galaxy 2.
Really?
Galaxy 2 has some really kind of rough
Yeah,
edges.
but Galaxy 2 still holds up super well, dude. Like, I played this weekend. Like, I'm talking about visually.
Not to say that they're unplayable, right?
Yeah, I'm
Like,
not even talking from controls perspective. I mean visually. The assets in that game scale really well to 720 compared to some games I have seen, is
But
all I'm
I
saying.
always said that about Wind Waker 2. And like
Yeah.
when you got Wind Waker HD in it, it just made the game so fresh and nice again.
Yeah.
I was hoping they had this these games farmed out to another company, not impacting their production schedule.
But we've talked about this. When
Yeah.
Nintendo commissions the remake, they don't just put it out in HD. Like, that's not how they work. And I don't know if you really want that. I don't know if I really want that. But I know I'm satisfied with these.
Well, so first of all, I'm 100% with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want HD
To
versions
me,
of
this
these
means
games.
they're
Of
not
course,
working
yeah.
on it, because otherwise they'd risk people going,
That-
"Wow, I just paid $10."
That was sort of my theory too, and we actually talked about it
I
on
don't
last week's
agree.
episode. And somebody wrote in. I'm sorry that I don't have their email, but they said, Brian had mentioned that Galaxy 2 coming out in standard definition instead of being remade probably means they aren't working on an HD remake of Galaxy 2. But he said that maybe it means they're working on an HD remake of Sunshine. I'm like, that's an awesome theory.
Yeah.
And I'm totally with that. But I think a game like Galaxy 2, I don't think it needs the Wind Waker treatment. Wind Waker needed some stuff to get fixed towards the end of it. I don't know
especially
if Galaxy
the
2,
Triforce Quest.
I don't know if Galaxy 2 really needs much.
Well, and that's why I'm posing it to you guys that way, where I feel like when I look at Galaxy 2, I don't see a game that really needed any changes. I'm sure there's a level or two that can use some touching up. Don't get me wrong. Maybe there's a mechanic, something later in the game. I've definitely heard. I've seen complaints on GAF of folks who rage about, like, there's a certain section, I think in Galaxy or Galaxy 2, that it gets insanely difficult, or it just doesn't seem like it's realistically something someone can do unless you're, like, really skilled with the game. But that said, I don't see it as like a Majora's Mask. I don't see it as like a. But then again, maybe it doesn't have to be. Ocarina of Time got remade, and that was the perfect game for folks. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe the logic I have here is skewed.
The two Galaxy games can benefit greatly from the visual bump and introduce that game to other people because they are fantastic. They're really good games.
See, but
Sunshine needs more work.
Yeah.
Sunshine, like Majora's Mask, has some rough issues on the technical side, some broken camera issues in certain levels.
Okay.
It's an awesome game. I really like Sunshine too. So if that gets the HD treatment, I'm fine with it. And
Me too.
It is less recent than Galaxy 2,
but when
so
the
it's more deserving.
When the HD treatment gets brought into the equation, I'm paying $40 for that game. I'm sorry, Peer, I don't want to pay $40 just for better visuals.
It doesn't have to be that way.
But I'm
right?
going that route because that's the trend. That's what we've seen, right? I'm being generous with 40. Some companies it's 50. Some companies it's 60.
Well,
I don't want to pay more for that game again.
It's 50 and 60 for games that
You have a choice.
Yeah, you have a choice.
It's true. I'm not saying the choice shouldn't be there. That's fair.
But it's when it's 50 or 60 for something like The Last of Us, sure. When it's 50 or 60 for like the 7th tier God of War game, I kind of have a problem with it. But Super Mario Galaxy 2, like that's one of those like, hey, there's like 20 games in the history of this medium that I'll double dip on for $40.
Or Galaxy HD collection where both games are in one, right?
Yeah, and I will
sure.
say now that I'm going to backtrack a little bit. There is some stuff in Galaxy 1, more so 1 than 2, when you're using the Wii Remote vertically and you're sort of like you're doing those balance games where you're trying to ride on that.
On a manta ray or something.
Manta
yeah,
ray.
I know what you're talking about.
Those don't necessarily work very well, and I don't know how you redo that or if you even touch that at all.
Slow down. That's how you make it work. You
Oh
slow
yeah,
down
you slow
and
down.
don't go
There you
really
go.
fast.
I thought you were telling me to slow down.
No,
But I
no,
gave you this look
absolutely.
like, what?
Yeah, no, you did.
But look,
not to harp on this for too long. I honestly feel that the HD treatment is a nice thing to have, but I feel like some distance needs to be there. I don't think there was enough distance between Galaxy 2 and now to really justify saying we need an HD remake.
I think that's fair. I mean, like, definitely, like, the main game on that list is Metroid Prime 1 for me. I would love Metroid Prime 1 redone with dual stick.
I want a new Metroid.
Graphics,
That's
right?
what I want. I don't want
but
an
that's
HD
a different
remake.
story for me. And people keep on saying, like, I would rather Nintendo make new games. It's like, of course, we all do. But a different studio that could never make a game of a caliber like Metroid can actually do the up-res project.
Yeah.
And so you're getting something additional, right? It's the same on IGN when, like, we have an article about NASA discovering a new planet. People go like, why didn't you spend that time writing a games article? It's like, because that writer could never have written that.
Yeah,
that writer is specifically assigned to this kind of content.
No, that's fair.
Exactly.
So weigh in. Email nvc@ign.com. Let us know. Do you want more HD remakes, or are you fine with these $10, $20? Their standard price in the U.S. is $20 for these things. Digital versions of these Wii games. Let us know what you think. Email nvc@ign.com.
And for goodness sakes, buy Prime Trilogy if you have never
Oh my
played
God,
it.
yeah.
Now is the time.
Yeah, even Galaxy 2, although now it's 20 by the time you're hearing this. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to close out our Nintendo Direct discussion, talking about Splatoon, Xenoblade Chronicles, maybe a little Mario Party 10, and what the heck is Project Treasure? More when we return. Welcome back. Jose Otero here with Brian Altano and Peer Schneider. Nintendo Direct happened a week ago.
Yeah.
We went through some of the griefing process last week on the show. This week, let's talk about a bit more positivity. Let's embrace it. Splatoon was shown. Xenoblade Chronicles X was shown. Mario Party 10. What stood out to you guys? Let's start with Splatoon. How is Splatoon looking? I think it looks better every time they
Splatoon
wheel
has
it
a
out.
Tower.
Just
Which
like
is
Destiny.
funny. Like, I mean, to people like us who play Destiny a lot, and if you don't play Destiny, has this area where people can congregate, like your party. You walk around, you can talk to like vendors and stuff, and it's basically you can just like hang out. There are no enemies to fight, right?
But the tower specifically is the place to launch multiplayer, but it's still in an area that you're just like, okay, this hub area is.
You can hang out, you can leave your machine on and walk around, and
that's
like
not
somebody's pushing you off the edge while you
and that's not to insinuate it was inspired by that.
No.
We're just jokingly referencing that.
But it's cool that it has this hub, and obviously games like Mario Golf have their equivalent of a tower like this hub area. Nintendo games have done that in the past, but the fact that it is a tower is really cool. So I mean, it looked really nice. Like it's the same. My impression of Splatoon is that I love the concept of kind of like the squid transition, the painting the world.
Very Nintendo.
Very Nintendo. Reminds me of The Blob, which was an underrated cool game from the THQ days. I love all that. My one experience with that game was at E3, where I wasn't yet feeling the mechanics of the game. Like it wasn't, that kind of reward feeling when you're shooting someone in a shooter like that. The way it feels wasn't there yet. Mm-hmm. But this is like a year ago now, right? Yep. So I'm greatly looking forward to playing it again, seeing what the team play mechanics are too. I really hope it has voice chat online, because
it needs a way to communicate.
Like that kind of game, it needs a little bit more communication than a D-pad up, hey, everybody join me or follow me kind of kind of
I have something to say there. Absolutely.
System. So,
no, I agree. Brian,
but it looks good. I mean, it looks really fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We did a rewind theater today about that game. So what did you think, looking a little closer at it?
So Splatoon was never like not on my radar. It was always there a little bit, but I wasn't really like, I was sort of like, I'll take it or leave it, I know, like, Marty played it and he didn't like it. I played it and I was like, it's cool. I'm just not, like, it's not at the top of my list yet.
I was, that's my impression.
Where I was kind of like, okay, so we've got this young, new team of Nintendo employees, and they're working on this new concept, and I love the feel of that. I love the look of the game. I was a little worried about, like, the simplicity or maybe lack thereof. It didn't seem like it had a lot of depth. And then we see this new trailer now, and we're, like, running through all the different customizations options of your character and the different types of weapons, and how like you can combine the weapons and their sub-weapons make for this completely insane array of things happening. Like, so there's a paint sniper, there's a guy with like paint proximity mines, and then there's proximity bombs.
Wow. Proximity
I just invented a new weapon.
Hello, this is Mr. Floyd calling. Mm-hmm. All right, proximity
moms that blow up when you get too close.
I know moms that blow up when you don't do what they say.
So there's like these paint tornadoes, and it's just like everyone in the game has this sort of devious look in their face, which I really appreciate. I said to Jose
like
today.
Devious like the Hamburglar.
Yeah.
Well, or the Powerpuff Girls.
I said to Jose today that it felt like Powerpuff Girls is a really good reference.
Yeah.
It felt like De Blob meets Rugrats to me. Yeah. Like it was sort of like everything's sort of like gritty but very cute and adorable and endearing.
Splashing paint everywhere.
Yeah, and I love how just messy the game is. Like and that's sort of the crux of it. But just watching the kind of the different interactive elements of watching all these different, like a sniper rifle versus a tornado versus a proximity bomb and all these other things.
Own it.
Yeah, no, I'm driving it home.
Man, wait till Ryan Altano hears
I thought that like it's now they're really solidifying it as a really special third-person shooter. My concern is the single-player guy. I know you guys play Destiny with each other every night and talk and.
Destiny does not have single player.
Talk each other into bed. My concern is that
it has co-op shared experiences. No, single player is really bad. But let's move on. We're not here to talk about it. Keep going.
My concern is that and we saw some single player stuff. It's a little more platformy, which I really like.
You're making cheese.
Yeah, you get to make cheese. There's a cheese whiz gun that lets you make blocks of cheese, which is so cool. But I sound like I'm 5 years old.
He's not kidding.
Yeah, so I want to make sure that there's enough single player for me, because I like the multiplayer stuff's cool, but I'm not really going to get into it as much as playing through single player levels. Yeah. I hope you can get coins in single player and unlock new weapons. Yes. And there's a good progression path.
The weapons look like a lot of fun in multiplayer. Like that, the latest footage shows off a lot of stuff that like there was one thing called I think it's the Ink Tornado or the Tornado Bomb, I forget, but it's like this rocket pack that the Splatoon character has on its back. Kind of concentrates for a second. The rocket goes off. You see this icon show up where it's about to land. It lands, and then a big tornado of paint just swirls and takes out everything.
Mm-hmm. It reminds
and
me
it looks
of
so good.
It reminds me of like if Q from James Bond worked at Super Soaker in the 90s.
Yeah.
And they were just like, look, here's $1 billion. Make the most insane things for kids to go out in the backyard and mess with each other with. And everything looks like a Super Soaker. It's got that same sort of color scheme, the green, yellow, and red.
Yeah. And when you pop paint or when an enemy sort of, I guess, dies, you see the little, the squid spirit go to heaven like a Pikmin. You see them.
And their clothes burst off. Like it's.
Well, look, I mean, it's getting, you're now seeing kind of like the Nintendo Touch coming in, right?
It
Where
is,
it's got all these little elements that you couldn't, or that we didn't notice first when we played the initial demos, or that just weren't in yet. I mean, I have high hopes for this game. I love that they didn't just take an FPS and did an FPS, like a generic FPS, like capture the flag style thing.
But communication in that game is key. As you said earlier, I think Nintendo Network and Nintendo especially, someone needs to explain to Japan, like you can't. People like to talk, or people like to communicate, or even just the notion of I want to get together to play a game. Right now, if I send you a message on Miiverse, the only notification you get is something you don't even notice, which is that the home button blinks blue. Yeah. That's it. There's nothing that happens on screen. There's no sort of sound, chime, even a like anything to tell you that you got a message.
Yeah.
So I really feel like when this thing comes along, there has to be a way to let people know, hey, bro, let's play. And it's not a text message.
I'm hoping the focus on kind of online competition with both Mario Kart and Smash Brothers, and like more of an interest in kind of esports and tournaments. I'm hoping that's opened the doors a little bit for, Nintendo in Japan to see the need for kind of like the communication features that we're all used to from all the other platforms, right? Like the communication features that, quite frankly, made Xbox Live what it was, right?
Yeah.
Like Xbox Live was the leader because it nailed every single element of communication.
I think you said was, because the current version needs work.
No, PlayStation, took that away from Xbox for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and I hope it has those elements, because it feels like they're getting the character stuff right now. And it just looks insane, to the point where I'm like, sometimes when I watch the footage, I'm like, can you keep track of what's going on, or is there too much paint splatter everywhere? And like,
it seems like a lot to keep
mayhem,
up with,
right?
And there's oh no, please.
But it may be more of an element of you actually learning what to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about in the Rewind Theater, where, like, for example, there was a paint shield that a character drops, and it's sort of it's a pole that it splits out two sort of wings, and you just have these streams of the same color paint falling down. But in the center, so you think, okay, well, that's a shield. They can't shoot through it with their paint. But what the opponent can notice is that there's a little chamber that shows how much ink is left in it. So if he's smart, or she's smart, they just sit there and wait it out and then go, okay, it's gone. Now I'm going to.
It's like watching the mercury in a thermometer drop. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a little cylinder right there, very visual, very easy to see and notice what's happening. And it's little things like that the Nintendo touches, if you will, that I think will eventually lead to people sort of figuring out best strategies, best loadouts for it, because it does embrace that stuff. It has sort of perks and things. You can tell from all the iconography that's all over every piece of gear that there is more to that game than just surface detail.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see where that goes, and I hope that folks are excited.
I was worried too that it was going to be like sort of visually distracting, but then I was thinking about like millions of people play Call of Duty, and that is like one of the busiest looking games in the world. Like,
you're getting shouted at the entire time by the game.
There's just like there's a guy that made every piece of garbage that is on one street corner that you barely even see. Like, there's just so much going on.
I'm more thinking of a game like Geometry Wars, where when you watch somebody play, you're like, how can you keep track of what's going on? But then once you get into the groove of it, like, you get this tunnel vision where you're like, you're looking just at the enemies. And,
But I will say, if they do, I don't want to call it a misstep yet, but if they do lean on not having a form of verbal communication, they do have a way to clearly tell if you're winning. The amount of paint on the ground, or just checking out the gamepad for half a second, shows you, hey, we need to paint more areas, or hey, we're in the lead or we're not. So
are you saying they have that, or they don't have
I said they totally have that now.
Good.
I just hope that they expand on it through actual verbal communication, because that's key for a team to really coordinate and do their thing.
Because that wasn't clear to me when I first played it. Like, that may have been because it was just a new experience and so overwhelming. But I was like, are we winning? Did I win? Right? Like, it was kind of like this question. Whereas, like, in every other, like, you're so used to the Call of Duty or FPS, usual kind of like stats readout where you get your kill death ratio and all that kind of stuff. This game was so different. You're like, wait, what did we do well?
No, I know what you mean. All right, now next game, Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Mm-hmm.
How'd it look?
I like it.
I played it.
Oh, yeah?
No, wrong Xenoblade.
Oh, you played the 3DS one. Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Oh, man. I was like, yeah. And like, that
Caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jose's like, who do you know?
Wow.
Who have you been talking
I took
to?
a secret trip to Nintendo in Japan the other day, just overnight. Didn't tell anybody about it.
I mean, it's that game remains a bit of a cipher for me in that we obviously haven't played it, so we don't know how it feels. But just watching the trailers, it seems like big, diverse world.
Yeah.
I mean, again, they showed all these different areas, and it looks great. It appears to be running really nicely too for such a great world. We know from their pedigree from the old games that they know how to make a good RPG.
Yeah.
And then they have all these ways of getting around in that world too, which looks really, really cool to me.
Yeah, definitely a great sense of scale.
I'm
too.
sold. The one, the kind of the big complaint that you hear is just the character design, the faces. They do look really strange.
I
Yeah.
agree. Very generic to a degree.
It is weird that that's not something. But we have the same issues with Link Between Worlds, right? Where you get this weird kind of Barbie Cupid look, and you're like, I'm not 100% on board with that one.
Yeah.
But most of the time you're staring at a character's ass anyway. So,
Yeah.
Back of his head.
I
think it's like it's the game that we need more like that on Wii U. I think it's it's the game kind of people want. Like, we get our Pikmins and our Mario parties, and those are all well and good, and I love games like that. But I think we also need those sort of big, robust, open world games to prove that the Wii U is up there with the its big brothers in the console wars. Like, we need games that show off that you can create this giant world that takes dozens and dozens of hours to traverse and complete.
Yeah, and the Wii U obviously doesn't have the benefit of kind of like a UB Montreal or Rockstar team, that can pull off these big world games.
Or 400 people to throw at a game.
If you can run GTA 5 on an Xbox 360, you can run GTA 5 on a Wii U, but it's just not, those developers are not making that type of game or making any games for the Wii U. So it's great to see this team really tackling a big, expansive, open world RPG like that.
Yeah,
I agree.
It looks great. I can't wait to play it. I know it's not one of those games where on a big bustling E3 show floor you are going to get a good impression because
it's a hard game to demo.
Driven.
Yeah, it is a hard game to demo.
I'm hoping Nintendo is going to put the time in going on a tour with this, letting people sit down and spend time with it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
or do like a Monster Hunter preview type thing where there's a demo codes that get thrown around and you can play a small chunk of it. Because I felt the same way with the Xenoblade that I played the other day.
So you played the 3DS.
The 3DS one.
Which...
I'm in a room with like 50 other journalists, and I'm hunched over a 3DS, and it's loud, and I can't hear anything, and it's just like I want it to be like everybody leave, so I can turn down the lights and turn up the volume and just sort of like immerse myself in this world. But I got the hang of it, I got the understanding of it, but I didn't get the I want to just sort of submerge myself in this type of thing that you just don't get with that many people around.
You can't get it with games. I mean, like anything from like Ogre Battle to like Fire Emblem, any of the Final Fantasy games, you never get that. Like, they can dazzle you with a cool CG trailer, obviously, Square can, but you're not going to get that cool effect of being immersed in the story.
I do want to point out, as someone who played a significant, not a significant amount, but I played like 12 hours. I dumped 12 hours into Xenoblade Chronicles on Wii.
Yeah.
The one thing that is great to complement that really great world with diverse areas is that team really knows how to give you a lot to do in that space. So I'm really excited to see how Xenoblade Chronicles X expands on those ideas, especially when there is that much diversity and exploration involved, which seems to be what they're hinting at. I think there are a lot more details in Japan out there right now than have been shared with America. So hopefully we'll be able to know how and what that game is.
So you played Chronicles recently, so do you have a frame of reference in comparing the 3DS version and how it runs with the original?
With the original?
Yeah.
Well, I must say that on new Nintendo 3DS, Xenoblade Chronicles Chronicles 3D rather, is incredibly jaggy, unfortunately. For a game of that scale made for the television to be put on a portable, it does seem like none of the areas have been altered in terms of how much space there is to travel on, because those worlds are huge in that game.
Yeah.
And they have beautiful vistas and really cool art that looked great on TV. I'm not 100% sold on how it looks on 3DS yet.
Okay.
And I can't tell if the build that we played is just early or if this is... I mean, anti-aliasing on Wii games was always an issue, right?
Yeah.
Like, you always see the staircasing that you don't like or the shimmering of polygons, which is always such an eyesore. And it was strange to me to see that on an exclusive game for that platform.
Yeah.
We'll definitely reserve any judgment, wait for the final build, and really then dig into that. But... I'm glad it seems to run just fine. There was no slowdown or everything seemed to be on point. I was sort of disappointed that you can't switch it to Japanese VO, which I like to do on the Wii one, because listening to the recordings in English, it's just it's very British, and it's like a lot of I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of the. Yeah, I'm just not a big fan of the voice work that was done in English. So I always would switch it and put on subtitles.
I mean, my hats off for not tackling an easy game.
For sure,
like they're bringing in a game that is unlike anything on the DS or the 3DS, like a game like that with this kind of.
Well, and something that when it's that much content to chew through, it's really good for as a portable game. It's great for those commutes or those flights that you take or anything like that. So I'm really happy about that part of it. I wonder if the assets are really going to make it through that transition well or not. But we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Next game, Mario Party 10. You're a Mario Party guy, right? Mario Party? No? Yes? Maybe? Once upon a time when Brian Altano was but a wee lad.
I guess I'm a Mario Party guy in the same way that I love the show. I used to love the show Dexter.
Okay.
And that the first few seasons were pretty good, but then the next 7
But you've
weren't.
been to enough Mario parties that you know what's good and what's not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to enough Mario parties to know what's going on.
Good setup.
I'm more interested in this one again. I do this sort of every time, but I think I'm kind of interested in this one again because I'm sort of piqued about the amiibo stuff. I think it looks pretty cool to sort of have.
Wait, are you in?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm in. No, I want to.
Oh, for the Super Mario set, you're in?
No. I'm not buying just Toad.
We'll see.
And then the other ones.
Yeah, I'll check next week.
Yeah. Well, what I told you what's going to happen is I'm going to go into a Target with Jose looking for something else. And I'm going to be like,
oh no, we're going for amiibo. You don't have to lie.
What's going to happen is I'm going to come in and go like, hello, it's me. Oh look, it's a regular amiibo.
God, it's so bad.
Yep.
It's so bad.
It's going to happen, you know.
But I'm in to try this one out. I think it'll be cool. I want it to be. There's something about Mario Party games that always feel like they're lacking that sort of polish that I'm used to with Nintendo. Like the character
they
model
were never made by Nintendo.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the character models are janky. The timing is just weird. Like playing them is like slow and sort of just like it's like
the board game element. Like the mini games are fast.
Yeah, they're
some
fast.
Of them just feel pretty much like the characters would feel in like Mario 64.
Yeah.
Right? But Hudson B is not Nintendo.
I want a no, he's not, and I want a Mario Party game that sort of feels like the quality that we found in Nintendo Land. Like Nintendo Land was like it was there with their best stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think there was the best parity across all mini games, but that never happens in any mini game collection. But the standard of quality was there, and the graphics were there. Like it was a very beautiful game.
Lots of little touches. Too.
Lots of little touches, which I really appreciate, and the texture work was incredible. I mean, it was one of the first times we ever got to see Nintendo stuff in HD. So I'm hoping that. I mean, people are probably saying, "Oh, it's just a party game. It doesn't matter if it looks great." And I'm like, I think it kind of does. Like if I'm going to be staring at it for 45 minutes at a time to play one board game.
So
did you guys get to play it?
No,
actually?
it wasn't. It wasn't there. The
No.
event was only 3DS games. I do
When's
want
it
to
out?
ask. Did you? May? Oh no, not May. March 20th.
Okay, so
I
we're
think,
getting
something
close.
Like that. Yeah,
I feel
we got
like
time.
if you have 3 friends in the same room, it's impossible not to have fun with Mario Party. Like there will be inevitably
How much
like
booze?
this one a lot. There will be this one mini game that you will just congregate around and like play over and over.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a puzzle game. Sometimes it's as stupid as like balancing on some giant beach balls and knocking each other off. But like those games can be really fun. The thing I tired with was the unpredictable nature of it all. You know, like the element that was supposed to make it like this fun party experience for the whole family. You're like, man, I've been kicking ass, and boom, everything gets turned around,
Yep.
and now I lost
Yep.
because XYZ.
It's like a soap
right?
opera.
Well, no, it's horrible. It's like I could win 25 out of 26 mini games, but Jose landed on 4 more green spaces than me, and Pear's broke, so they're just going to throw him stars and throw you stars, and I end up losing.
And so the best board games, and I play a lot of board and tabletop games, the best board games are not the ones that leave everything up to chance or can go on for hours. They're the ones that have some really clever gameplay concepts that let you actually be
dig your way out of trouble.
Win if you are smart. So here's an example. If Mario Party, if you could land on a certain field that gave you a hint as to what one of the criteria for winning would be in advance. It told you, oh no, the guy with the fewest stars is going to win. And like, you can get that information by playing smart. Then suddenly you get this thing where, as a smart player, you're keeping track of the 5 criteria in your mind on how to win, and then you can play towards
But that's got to be a hard thing to design for when Mario Party, in my imagination, is mostly for kids. Like, how do you get kids to be savvy?
Kids.
I don't have any. You do, so you get to make that point. Like, am I then? Like, I am totally underestimating the intelligence level of a 8-year-old, 10-year-old.
Let's say there's a way for you to find out that if like the person who won, I don't know, you don't want it to be something that encourages you to lose in challenges. But if there was some sort of element that would tip you off, I think kids would love that, because they'd be sitting there going, hee, I know what it is, and you don't.
Not to stretch
Colonel
this
Mustard
too far,
in the library with a dagger.
Nice, but not to stretch this too far. But when everyone's looking at the TV, how do you do that? That's the thing that kind of bugs me out. Like, you play a lot of board games where there's not even a television, right? So that information. Okay. I don't know how that comes about.
You can trade your coins for special cards that give away something, and you have to use the gamepad to get the card, and so only the player with the gamepad can see the card.
Sure.
Like, you could, like Nintendo, they're brilliant designers over there. If they actually hired a smart tabletop board game designer, you would get an amazing game out of it, because I feel like the mini games are never the issue. It's the board game component.
You're right. No, 100%. All right, next game.
We'll see how it turns out. I mean, I'm definitely going to buy it because I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
So we'll see.
So you're going to get 4 amiibo, 6 amiibo, the whole set, whatever you need to make it work.
It's GM money.
It's that GM money. That's right. So what the heck? Can you use the GM money to tell me what the heck is Project Treasure? Namco shows up during this, more specifically, Katsuhiro Harada, who is the Tekken producer, shows up during this Nintendo Direct in sort of a silly tease for something that's coming up. This is he described the project as a 4-player co-op action game with varied stages. Players will clear traps, defeat enemies, and seize treasure. This is a free-to-download project that you can download from the Nintendo eShop, and any Nintendo Network user can play as long as your system is connected to the internet, which almost hints to me multiplayer, online multiplayer, like it would have to. He didn't reveal the official name, release date. There were no in-game assets shown, just some static art, if you can call it that, because it was kind of close up.
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know. Why even show it to us?
The moment, I think it's
so weird.
It's storytelling, right? Like, we learned last year that Nintendo would forge alliances with companies to kind of create these crossover projects, and Puzzle and Dragon is obviously another one, right?
Yeah, casual mention.
But like, we didn't need reconfirmation that they're working with Bandai Namco, right? Like, they've made their biggest game, Smash Brothers, with that company, and so that was a weird announcement.
It was an announcement of an announcement, which doesn't have a finite date at this point.
We're happy to announce that we're going to announce something. Exactly. When I heard Treasure, I immediately thought of One Piece. Like that, when it came to like that, what this company owns, what they could make, I thought maybe they have some pirate theme, kind of like One Piece Treasure Hunter kind of a game.
I hope not.
Of course, I would love it to be Zack and Wiki, but wrong company.
Yeah, this is true.
Someday.
Someday.
Okay, so I don't know how to get excited for it. I mean, I'm glad there is another game with a Japanese partner, and it could turn out to be really good, but I don't know what to really think about it. Casual mention.
But it's co-op, right? Like, you're working
4-player co-op action game with varied stages, and you're going to seize treasure, defeat enemies, and clear traps.
Yeah.
There we have it. Puzzle and Dragons Double Pack and Pokemon Shuffle. I don't want to get too into them. They got announced. One is a free-to-play game. The latter, Pokemon Shuffle. Puzzle and Dragons Double Pack is the Puzzle and Dragons Z game and Puzzle and Dragons Super Mario Brothers Edition.
Yep.
If you're not familiar with that franchise,
they make money. Yeah.
Well, it is one of the most popular games of all time.
On free to play.
If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
but it's free to play on most devices that it's available.
It's free to play and pay to stay. I mean, those games are so successful because people pay serious cash. And like Puzzle and Dragon is mostly popular in Asia, right? That's where it's really, really huge. And I mean, 41 million downloads. That is
nothing to sneeze
small,
at,
right?
Yeah, no.
And so it is in the same league as your Candy Crushes out there. Very simple puzzle game, but really important to Asia. Now, the previous game came out on the Nintendo. Actually had a handheld version of Puzzle and Dragon before
in Japan only.
and it sold over a million copies. So nothing to
But that game works in Asia. I don't know that game works here, but whatever. Give it a chance.
Well, will it work in the West when you have Mario characters? That's the question, right? Like the moment it becomes like you actually, and that's a value proposition. It's like, hey, you guys haven't had much success in the West. How about we put Mario and Puzzle and Dragons together, and suddenly you have something.
I sort of shrug my shoulders because I'm not into the sort of match 3 Candy Crush cult.
Candy Cult is a good game.
Yeah, I'm not into that, so I kind of shrug my shoulders. If you're into it, be excited. I'm
into it.
But I think what a smart.
Good. Yeah.
Did anybody else get totally hooked on Zookeeper when it launced with the original DS? Which was it was a match 3.
Yeah,
it was, that was the game.
Were you that desperate for something to play?
Oh yeah, I mean it was either that or Feel the Magic. Or
I love puzzle games like that, simple ones that are clear.
Yeah.
Tetris, even Candy Crush, I think is pretty smartly designed to take.
Yeah,
money.
The last one I got really hooked into was Planet Puzzle League, so maybe I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. So we'll see. 41 million people might not be wrong.
I'm not saying they are. I just still have no interest. Next up, we got to play Zelda, Majora's Mask 3D. Brian and I have been playing since last week. So we should talk a little bit about it. Why don't you start? Because I've already kind of talked a little bit about how I went back to Majora's Mask over the Christmas break.
Yep.
And sort of the feelings I got from it. Because
how did you play it on N64?
Yeah, on the original N64, and then I also played parts of it on Virtual Console.
So we talked about this. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, but I said that I had played Majora's Mask until completion when it first came out in 2000.
Okay.
And I didn't like it. It didn't stick with me. Right. I was not wild about the 3-day system.
No, we remember. You're that one guy.
Yeah, I'm the one guy.
That's okay.
And I understood that it was a lot of people's favorite Zelda games, and I didn't get why. And as years went on, I wanted to replay it. And when it came out on GameCube, I couldn't because there was like that weird music glitch and sound glitches and stuff like that.
Can I stop you there, though?
Yeah.
And also, for years, you just trolled people who would bring up reasons to play. Like, I don't want to play that game. I hate that game. You've done it plenty of times on the show.
Yeah, of course. Hell yeah.
Okay.
I'll stand by that.
All right, cool.
And I always said if they re-release it or remake it, I'll give it another shot. And they did. And I did. And I really like it.
What?
I really like it. And I get what... Hi. Brian Altano here. I'm here to admit that I actually thoroughly enjoy Majora's Mask. It is not my favorite Zelda game. I think if it's your favorite Zelda game, you're not wrong. You're slightly crazy, but you're not wrong.
No, I think it could be a favorite. I think it's trolling when you say it's the best. When someone says it's the best Zelda.
No,
then I come out and go, absolutely not.
I think that it's got enough weirdness to it that people associate with dark themes. And every like man-child in the world has wanted this mature, dark Zelda.
Whoa,
that's not it for me. No,
whoa.
what? I'm sorry, that's not Zelda.
But
no,
Don't play
it's not,
Skyrim.
It's not that, but there are dark themes in that game. I mean, are you saying there aren't?
No, there are, but I don't think that should be the direction of the franchise.
Okay, fine.
It's
I'm
cartoon dark, though.
Yeah,
it's not,
cartoon dark.
You're
Thank
playing
you.
as a kid within the whole game. It's
Thank
like
you.
how like some Studio Ghibli movies are dark.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah, but it's grim at times. Like there's a character you bring him peace by playing the Song of Healing because he's dead and he can't rest.
It's got this
Like
fatalist kind
when you
of.
think about that, that's dark.
It's dark. Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, the flute kid in the forest in Link to the Past is dark too.
Yeah.
How he just dies and turns into a tree.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
To me, it's more like how fairy tales used to be, right?
Yeah,
like when you
yeah.
read like the original like Grimm's or any of the old stories, you know, they're like they're pretty gnarly.
Sorry,
I
don't mean to push you on that.
It is a literal like doomsday story, right? It's about the
Yep.
end of the world,
Yeah.
and the way different people react to that. And I think that it does get increasingly more intense as you get to the third day, and the music changes, and it's almost sinister.
That's the dark factor.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, it makes you nervous. This game.
The fact that you start off the game as a spinning plant that can shoot balls out of his face is not dark, you know, or that there's
No, that's not. You're right.
the same goofy fat guy with the 2x4 running around the town like in Ocarina. He's not dark either.
It's very,
but trying
very-
to save a world in 3 days and
Yeah.
then realizing you can't and jumping back to the first day to try and do it again and
Yeah.
then try and do it again and solving people's problems along the way. And some of those problems can be dark, but I agree with you that some of it is very cartoon dark.
So what I am sort of realizing going back to it is that the world is actually a lot, and I had the opposite effect with Ocarina, where I went back to it and I was like, feels smaller than I thought it did. But Majora's Mask actually feels a lot bigger than I thought.
Actually,
Majora's
I
Mask
think
did.
dense is the word I would describe
Dense,
it as.
sure,
yeah, in
yeah.
terms
I
of
mean,
like
'cause it's not-
how much it's not
It's not a
physically
very
larger.
large world, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of really interesting nooks and crannies. And there are only
Good point.
4 real temples in the game, aside from like the last area.
Yeah.
But they're large, and getting to them is a challenge in of itself.
They did. That's the first game where they kind of did the puzzle around the dungeon
Yeah.
kind of approach too.
And it's interesting because, and this is what I realized. When I grew up, Kid Icarus was one of my favorite games of all time. And I had friends who played it, and they said, that game sucks. And I was like, well, you're playing it wrong. And I realized I was playing Majora's Mask wrong all along. What you need to do in Majora's Mask is once you get the Song of Time, you slow down time. So now immediately you have 3 real world hours to accomplish anything. And before you enter a dungeon, you do everything you need to do to get that dungeon key, which is a song. And that song brings you back to opening up that door again. And by the end of doing all that, you're probably at the very end of the last day, and you have to warp back to the first day, and then you go tackle that dungeon. I used to try to squeeze it all in at once, and I'd be halfway through a dungeon, I'd be looking at the clock, and I'd be like, I gotta get out of here. Yeah. And I thought that was a very poor way of like, I like to play Zelda games leisurely, and to have that sort of time hanging over me, I didn't like it.
Well, and it doesn't help that they didn't do a great job of teaching folks that the Song of Time could be played backwards or could be played in double time.
Yeah.
It was just casually mentioned. It wasn't something that was tutorialized. And I understand that being people's complaint. A lot of folks who have argued, I don't like this game, say, I didn't know I can do that. That I can
Which, like, I'm for, because I don't think we need so much hand-holding in games.
At the same time, guys, I mean, I totally hear you. That game was unforgiving, but nothing can replace that feeling of impending doom. Like, that game, like, I actually walked away, like, you get frustrated, but it's like games like Dark Souls where the frustration leads to the enjoyment of the game, too. And, like, I wonder now if the game is going to be as tense and as impactful because you can save more often. You know, it's like Resident Evil. Like, everybody hates the typewriters and having to use the typewriters. When the typewriters are gone, you're like, oh, man, like, this is not scary.
This is not scary anymore.
And so the good news is that people have the option to slow down time or not and like play with a normal pace. But I wonder, like, I'm really looking forward to playing it again and seeing whether the experience has changed.
I think it has in the most positive
Okay,
ways
that's
I've
Good
seen
to
so
hear.
far. There's some things that I'm not entirely sure where you draw the line between what you fix and what you don't.
Yeah.
When you remake a game, and how deep do you go?
Yeah.
And I do want to address one quick thing, because you mentioned there are 4 puzzles or 4 dungeons in this world. I think the 5th dungeon is the world itself, because you are running back and forth within this labyrinth trying to help people get what they need, or trying to accomplish certain things, and that becomes almost a puzzle in and of itself, where it's like, okay, in order to reforge this sword, I need to do this. Okay, I've got the reforged sword, let's go back. And then go to the next step. It's almost like you're using the 3-day cycle to continue to power up so that you are strong enough to fight Majora.
Yeah, which I actually I think it's really fascinating, and it's obviously it's a game about time traveling. So inherently, it barely makes any sense. But there are things that there's almost these like kind of moments, like when you upgrade your sword permanently for the first time, and it's yours for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Whereas every time you warp back to the first day, you lose all your rupees, you lose all your bombs, unless you put them in a bank.
Put them in the bank. Yeah.
But all your sub items and stuff like that, you don't lose the idea of having them. Like, you don't forget how to use arrows, but you forget all the arrows that you have. So
it's funny because it's so different, right? Like you can't count on having that stuff, which is great too.
Yeah, which I really like, and I think that I get why people really appreciate Majora's Mask because it preceded almost 4 3D Zelda games in a row that came after it. They were almost exactly the same in their execution, and nothing really did anything like that.
And as someone who covered the game when it was announced and first shown, right? Like we saw the first screenshots and some of the stuff, was changed over time. And you speculate as to what the game is about. It's like, oh, Skull Kid is back, and he's probably gonna be Link's buddy, and it's like, whoops, like it has all these kind of cool elements. But the one worry we had was that it was gonna be the same. You're like, oh, they're reusing everything from Ocarina of Time, including all the NPCs, including a lot of the, like the items and everything. And then you play the game, you're like, whoa, hold on a second. It looks completely different. Color scheme-wise, it's insane. And I will say, like, seeing it now on the 3DS, they did a really nice job touching up the textures on the walls. There's all this crazy graffiti now around Clock Town. Like in one of the dungeons, they're like these weird kind of like chalk drawings of flowers on the walls, and like it's really well made now. So, but it looks so unique and different, and it plays so different.
So let me ask you something then, as someone who was there because this project came together in a weird way, where they announced, I think it was Ura Zelda and Zelda Gaiden, or were those separate?
Zelda Gaiden and Ura Zelda are the same game.
They are the same game, but then the one that would become the Master Quest had a code. Like there were 2 Zelda code names.
Oh, sorry, no, I take that back. This was supposed to be Gaiden. It was a side story.
This was Zelda Gaiden.
And then Ura
Zelda was the
Ura is the Master Quest.
Master Quest version. Just, take us back a little bit. Like, what was going through your minds as this was sort of being talked about? Because this was the 1-year Zelda.
This is going to blow your mind.
1 year, you're going to put this out.
But at the time, there was a lot of talk about Nintendo not having enough games and not being able to deliver enough games to the market.
You're kidding.
No, I know, it's crazy.
We're trapped in the same...
Were there rumors that they were going third party?
So they had this amazing...
We're trapped in the 30-year cycle.
No,
we're not.
There were no rumors like that. But no, there was a lot of concern, right? Like it took them a long time to create Ocarina of Time. People played it and said, my goodness. Like whenever a Nintendo game comes out, it's a major event, and they invent new ways of playing games. Like the lock-on system in that game. Like this is before games went open world the way they are now. GTA was a top-down game, right?
Yeah, I remember.
And they created this amazing world, and like it was very low on glitches compared to like games that would follow later too. So then people said, but it takes Nintendo 3+ years to churn these games out. Churn's not the right word, to craft these games. What are they going to do? And so the word comes down from Nintendo saying, hey, we're going to do this Zelda Gaiden game, and we're going to only spend 1 year on it. Right? That was the initial thing, was Aonuma saying, we are going to speed up development. That was Nintendo's entire kind of mantra. They're like, we're going to crank out games faster by reusing some of the assets. It was such a big leap from Super NES to the N64. But now we have these figures and all this stuff made. We have an engine. We can reuse it. So we're going to take all the characters from Ocarina of Time. We're going to make a new game.
And that game had like 7 individual directors, but Aonuma was the overseer of it all.
Yeah.
That's when his name really kind of came to the forefront for us as well. We learned this guy's name and realized this guy is pretty smart, pretty demented too, from just looking the way that Majora's Mask shaped out. So that didn't happen. It was not made in a year, of course.
Do you know who was
bigger and bigger and more ambitious and crazier?
Just to put this out there, do you know who was the event planner on that game, the scenario sort of writer?
No.
Koizumi,
okay.
the producer on Mario, now was the event planner / scenario writer for it. And I just find it so wild that he works on Mario now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that world, I feel, is... he deserves credit for that. Yeah.
It's odd to me that we never got that mentality again with like, we didn't get like a weird Wind Waker 4 years after Wind Waker with the same like character models and
well, with Wind Waker there's some reasons, right? But no, I hear you. I think they realize that they're actually not saving that much time because the artists can create new characters. It's like there's so much work to be done on a game like this.
Where's our Majora's Mask version of Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword?
This might be wishful thinking, but I do hope they revisit this after this next Zelda. I want them to embrace if this world is as big as they're claiming it is, and if it's all these things that we hope it is. somewhere deep inside of me hope that someone is saying, hey, why don't we approach that idea again? Try and put something together, something smaller, reusing assets within that world. I would buy that game.
Well, that's what Galaxy 2 is, right? I mean, Galaxy 2 is very much
it is and it
a
isn't.
redo.
It is and it isn't. Reading interviews, it sounded like Galaxy 2 started out as Super Mario Galaxy 1.5, like a half step, and then they decided we have so many levels we've made. Just make it a sequel. Just make it this fully fledged thing.
But it is, the game concept is the same.
It was.
Mario
No,
64, Sunshine, and Galaxy are very different games.
They
All
are.
three of them are not the same. Like people, sometimes I get so mad when you see comments saying like, "Oh, Nintendo's just doing the same thing." It's like,
don't do that.
Oh my God!
All right, that's fair.
They're absolutely not doing that,
Okay.
right? Like the Mario games cannot be any more different. Like, sure, you can say that about New Super Mario Brothers. Or
Absolutely, yeah.
but even that is 4 players, which is very, very different.
Yep.
Right.
But yeah, the Galaxy is that kind of game. And
was.
They haven't done it that often.
I hope they do it with this next Zelda. I'm sorry, but I pulled this we've gone way off topic here a little bit. But
Majora's
I do
Mask.
want to say, though, that we should definitely spend some time talking a little more about Zelda Gaiden and its road to what it became. And let's do that maybe next episode, maybe episode after that, depending on how much news comes through.
Sure.
Talk about some of those memories and the information as it trickled out and your responses and reactions to it, because you were there.
You're assuming I can remember all that stuff.
I know you can. You remember some
that's
pretty
like
interesting
94
things.
years ago.
Going back to impressions, is there anything else you want to add on Majora's Mask 3D? What's not working for you?
Do you want me to
is
talk
working?
about the new 3DS at all? And
I want to save most impressions on the system for next week, but if you want to present some things in response to that, we can get a few minutes of that before we got to go.
Sure, just very quickly, I will say that Majora's Mask is an excellent 3DS game to play. It's an excellent game to play on your 3DS. Part of me wishes like I could play it on a big screen. And it seems weird to have this sort of giant world Zelda game on such a tiny thing, but I'm not complaining because it means that I can curl up on the couch and play it while watching something else. But I will say that it's sort of an unwitting launch title for the new 3DS because it doesn't exactly use the system for the things that it's selling the system for. You know, like the new system has these 2 new shoulder buttons that this game doesn't really use. It's got this new C-stick, which doesn't fully operate like a second joystick, like not in the modern sense of when you play a twin stick 3D open world action game, which everyone who's listened to the show has probably played in the last 10 years. Majora's Mask is a little differently than that. It's more. It feels more like an N64 game with a slight semblance of second joystick controls. I noticed that like it does sort of get stuck in some areas. Like for example, in the second temple is this Goron level. It's this giant tower, and you'll climb up high in it. Yeah, and you'll try to look down using the C stick, and it sort of gets stuck in parts because it's not that kind of game, which I can't fault the game for, nor can I fault the hardware for, but it's just weird to introduce both these things at the same time and hand them to a generation of players who are probably used to a little more precise control.
Yeah, and you're being very clear. These are tiny things. Like the C-stick works fine. But
and you're actually playing it on a regular 3DS XL.
I'm playing on the
and you're
old
not having
school.
this issue at all.
No, I'm not. No,
yeah.
I feel like when I have plugged in a Circle Pad Pro to try it out, and whenever I do plug that in, I find myself babysitting the camera a lot more. But I do find myself also taking in the world a lot more. I feel like for any 3D sort of game, you want to do that. You especially with Majora's Mask, like playing it on N64 just a couple weeks ago, and then playing it on this now.
Yeah.
It's like I want to stop and look at everything because everything looks so good, and go, wait, did that look like that before? I don't even know.
Yep.
And get like a sense of that, but. I totally hear what you're saying, where these are just tiny things that it almost makes you second guess why this platform was where this game belonged, or at least where it needed to launch alongside. But then again, I don't think Nintendo necessarily ties a launch quote-unquote game to a half-step system. Like when Game Boy Color came out, Pokemon was the same game, same day. It wasn't even in color.
I was saying it to you, my closest comparison is sort of like when Smash Brothers launched and Amiibo launched. And Smash Brothers is awesome and Amiibo is awesome, but together, like, they didn't...
It wasn't peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, it was sort of an afterthought.
Yeah.
And I like what they did with it, but it wasn't like, oh man, you have to have this. And I feel the same way about Majora's Mask and the new 3DS. It's not... They're launching at the same time, and there's a Majora's Mask new 3DS, but I don't think that this is the peanut butter and jelly. XL, yeah. I know. But I don't think that these two things are not like... And look, they play very well with each other. That's the way I'm playing it right now. It works great. The 3D is awesome in Majora's Mask. I am playing with 3D constantly, and that's like a 40-hour or so game if you really take your time to find everything. But I just think that like they are sort of separate entities that are being smushed together, maybe unwittingly, and
and they're a good fit, but
your situation may vary.
They're not a perfect fit.
Yeah. You were
Okay.
expecting a little bit more of a kind of like for the two things to gel together. Maybe like a Skull Kid amiibo with the whole thing and it all working together, right?
Something
where like a consumer would easily say, "Oh, I need this for it." And maybe that's when Nintendo is still a little timid. They want to make sure nobody thinks Majora's Mask is only for the new 3DS, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's why the Circle Pad Pro integration's there. Like, I was so surprised when I was at a demo and it said, "Do you want to use Circle Pad Pro?" I was like, "It works for this."
Yeah, that's
because
great.
Smash Brothers. No option for Circle Pad Pro.
Yeah.
You need that C-Stick, or Smash Brothers might as well be a new 3DS launch game to a degree, because not only does it run faster, it actually uses that C-Stick as an attack input.
which is great, and I love playing that, by the way. I've been doing that, so...
Absolutely. All right, cool. Well, there you have that. Last thing I want to tackle really quickly is a reader question, and then we're out the door. This one comes from good friend of the show, Charlie Gatson, and he says, like many others, after the announcement of only the new 3DS XL in North America, I was a bit put off because I want the regular size one. Now I'm thinking of importing much like I did for a Vita Slim. However, there's the issue of region locking. Since I don't buy physical media anymore, will this be an issue? It's my understanding that upon eShop login, it will take me to the North American eShop. Is that right? So, Charlie... No, it is not right at all. I have imported several 3DSs over time from Japan. I started out with a 3DS XL in white because I wanted to play certain games that would arrive there first. And it did not bother me to not be able to read them. If it was ever a problem, I have Pair to turn to. But
just get a pair. Everyone gets their own pair.
The region locking doesn't just affect the cartridge itself. It affects the eShop itself. So you are locking into the Japanese eShop, and that's where you're spending Japanese eShop points, or in some cases it will read a foreign credit card, but of course you could fall into trouble there with like your bank or something, because they'd be like, "Hey, did you buy this from Japan?" Like, you're gonna get a text message or an email right
Generally
after, like, "Did
works,
you do this?"
yeah.
Generally it can work, or you need a hookup in Japan to get you points on. You could do that through Play Asia. You don't need a physical person to do that for you, or there are other sites on the internet that you can order a Club Nintendo point card from, and you will get that. But if you import this from Europe or from Japan, you are locking yourself to that region's shop.
Sure.
So whether you buy physical or digital, you're stuck there. Don't do it. Unless you don't mind importing games from Europe, because at least you can read those and play those, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I was going to ask you
And their
about that,
release
actually.
calendar is a little different, though,
Yeah.
because they might get a game earlier, or like in the
or
case
way
of
later.
Captain Toad, they just got, I think,
Yeah.
if they haven't gotten it already. I don't even know for sure.
Yeah, it was nice when, some of the European Wii games didn't come out in the US, right? Like, it would have been nice to have a European region system in that case. I mean, the only thing that's really not region locked are amiibos, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
that's the one item that you can happily import from elsewhere.
And
Well,
Smash
not
Brothers
if you're
3DS.
Jose.
Huh?
No, and Smash Brothers 3DS. Smash Brothers 3DS talks to any version of Smash Brothers 3DS. So if you're going to use it as a controller, it'll detect your 3DS regardless of region, and it'll detect the game.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I
Okay.
played with the Japanese 3DS with the Japanese copy of Smash Brothers in it as a controller for Smash Brothers Wii.
Weird.
Wow, that's really interesting.
This is a big daisy chain of a sentence.
You're probably
that I
the
got
only
there.
person who's ever done that.
Yeah,
It's
well,
really
it's
interesting.
true.
But I mean, region locking can be a pain in the butt, right?
Yeah.
Like some in the past, like if you played a Japanese version of Pokemon first and you wanted to trade to the US one, you couldn't do that. Like it can get really, really tricky.
It can get, yeah, and then you also have to put up with what kind of games you're buying. Are you willing to put up with not being able to read them? I personally like it because it really tests game design to me. It says to me, can I figure out with the tools that are in front of me or the visual cues what they want me to do? Tomodachi Life, I was able to do it, and that game is
Wow.
100% as Japanese as you can get. Like, everyone is speaking
I'm surprised
Japanese.
that you had fun with that,
Yeah.
despite the Japanese.
Oh, I had a ton of fun. It was really good. I had so much fun. In fact, the North American one kind of didn't. I played it, but I kind of wore off faster because I had gotten so far in the Japanese one. But the context was nice. But it was weird not to
obviously-
see bowing and all that stuff.
But you can't. I mean, you just can't apply that to every game.
No, you
obviously.
can't.
Like
Absolutely not.
Fire Emblem, like you're
Nope.
not gonna know what to
Pokemon.
do or what
Nope.
characters should meet up. And Pokemon is really tough because somebody will say, "Oh, you need to go there and you have no idea what to do.
I mean, it works for Mario. I don't think it works for Zelda.
Or Kirby
you know.
and the
Charlie,
Rainbow Crunch.
don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it, Charlie.
Just wait.
Great. Thank you for listening
There will be a small 3DS. Come on. There's gonna be one.
I'm not disputing that again. I told you I'm confused and I want to talk about it. So
I think there will be.
Thank you for listening to Nintendo Voice Chat. We are a weekly show on IGN, but we are not the only thing IGN makes. IGN actually makes some really good comedy shows. Some comedy stuff's coming. Brian's been secretly working on some cool things that I don't think
I'm working on some really
yet.
cool videos with Max Scoville and some new producers here. We're trying out some fun new stuff. So I'm really excited about it.
Cool. We've got features. We've got videos. Come check us out. www.ign.com. We've got other podcasts for your platform or preference, or we do movies, right? Yeah, we got movies.
We do everything.
Cool. If you have feedback on Nintendo Voice Chat, please email us at nvc@ign.com or head on over to iTunes. You can subscribe for the show while you're there, but more importantly, you can leave us a review and a rating. Let us know what you think. Lastly, you can find us on Twitter. You can find Brian Altano at
Agent Bizzle.
You can find Peer Schneider at
Peer IGN.
And you can find myself, Jose_Otero on Twitter. Thanks again for listening, and we will be back next week with more Nintendo Voice Chat.